Hello, we're here today to bring you a buyer's guide for nursery items for your baby. There are so many different products on the market, and a lot of them do very specific things. And so we're going to take you through step by step things you need to know, what you need to ask, which ones could really help you, and how you're going to choose which ones you're going to buy. I'm Susie, I'm Editorial Director of MadeForMums.
And I'm Gemma, and I'm Consumer and Reviews Editor. And our role at MadeForMums really is to help you as a parent make confident choices. And as Susie says, find the right things for you. And in this area, there is so much that falls into this, like nursery, baby category. So I thought it'd be interesting to start with the biggest things, with the furniture. So things like, you can get beautiful children's wardrobes and furniture sets, chests of drawers, things like that often will match with the cot that you've chosen. And I think a lot of people do wonder, is it worth buying the children's stuff?
Yeah, and I think from our point of view, with 3 children, a child's wardrobe actually was a great investment because it gives you a place to store your clothes right at the beginning, but as your child grows it becomes where their clothes are, and it can be part of that encouraging them to take responsibility for their clothes. You wash their clothes, and instead of things just ending up on the end of the bed or on the floor,
over the chair,
indeed, they actually, you can help teach them how to hang up their clothes. And also at that stage when you are encouraging them to choose what they're going to wear, it gives them a really nice opportunity. And that rail is lower down than in an adult's wardrobe. So they get to a point where they can kind of reach up. And if they're still too small, they can at least point. So a really good sort of teaching in a way, a real opportunity. And then I guess you've got the chest of drawers, which is another alternative and gives you a huge amount of storage. And again, from a baby perspective, we know that there is a lot of things that you need and you want them to hand. And as they grow, then that's where great drawers to put clothes in, and even potentially then later on toys and other stuff that they want. And you were having, particularly with you were talking about, or I know that you were telling me before about a changing table.
Absolutely. So a lot of these chests of drawers will come, if they're part of a baby furniture set, with a changing section on the top, just a removable box that works as a changer. And for me, that was a really big thing. I mean, a lot of people told me, don't bother buying a changing table, you won't use it. I didn't listen to them, and I bought one. And I actually think it was one of the best things that we bought. I mean, right now I have a toddler. He's still in nappies. So we've got all his wipes, the muslins that we use, his lotions and potions. We've got all of his cloth nappies, all of his disposables, because I use both. And it's a really useful tool for us. And when he's a little bit older and he's potty trained, the changer comes off. It's then a lovely chest of drawers, as you say, to put his clothes or toys in. So I do really think that they're worth considering, obviously, if you have the space and you have the finances to be able to do it.
And otherwise, you don't have to. It's fantastic. There are sets that you can buy, but also you can find other places to buy those pieces of furniture, and again, fit for your needs. That's the key.
And secondhand as well.
Yes, of course.
So we've just been talking about changing, which segues beautifully into something that really is an essential. Everyone needs one of these. It's a changing mat. So this is a baby down one. There are loads of different types on the market. You can get these solid ones like this. You can also get travel ones that fold up. You just need somewhere that is a clean and safe space to but mostly to protect the area underneath wherever it is that you're changing.
Oh, the choice of punamis.
But also, a little bit of squish to keep baby comfortable, because there will be times when they love being changed on these, and there will be times when they absolutely hate it.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? That you really can't. They particularly, they start off and everything's a new experience, but they definitely get to an age where having their nappy changed is not something they're necessarily going to really enjoy.
Absolutely. I mean, I had these, because even if you have a changing unit like I have, you still need a soft mat for the baby. And I had a couple of these at the start, which my son would just lie on, and if I had it on the floor, he'd just chill out on it. Now, if I put him on the changing table at 16 months, it's a completely different story. But these are all about safety, really.
Yeah, and of course, one of the biggest safety things just to remember is never ever leave your baby unattended. on a changing table.
Not even for a second.
Any height at all, because even if your baby's not able to roll right now, actually at some moment in time they will be, and they wriggle as well. So one of those things, doorbell rings, something on your phone, just never ever take a second, keep your hands there. But as you were saying, these are soft enough to put on the floor. So, certainly by the time they get wriggly, you might find it feels more comfortable to do it on the floor. I guess changing tables are great because you're not having to bend down.
Yeah, they protect your back, but there becomes a point where they become harder to use with a wriggly older baby or toddler.
And are there any particular things that you talked about softness and things? Are there any other particular things you're looking for from a changing mat?
Yeah, we've just talked about rolling. These are anti-roll, so it does give you a little bit of help, more in keeping the baby where they need to be than being any kind of like safety thing that means you can walk away. It's very much about just keeping that baby in position to be able to change that nappy quickly and safely.
And they're quite high then. Those are proper anti-roll, whereas some of the other changing mats are not quite as high on the sides.
Yeah, and you do need to watch with some of them. They're not actually safe to put on a changing table because they have a curve. So the baby could kind of roll up the curve and straight off. So if you are planning to put it on a raised surface, do check that it's safe to do so. You probably want something maybe with a lip all the way around, or they'll be in 3 directions. That could be a little bit of a better choice in that situation. The other thing is obviously the fabric that it's made of. This is nice and wiped clean.
Yeah,
you'll be doing that quite a lot.
The cleaning. It is amazing that you take a baby's nappy off. I remember I used to do baby massage, and the moment, doesn't matter how wet their nappy is, the moment the nappy comes off, there's obviously something about the air coming, and you generally see a little reaction to that, and hopefully it's a sort of wet one rather than a more solid one.
Yeah.
But these things happen, and they really do occasionally have quite squirty poo, don't they?
Yes, and you learn quickly if you've got a little boy in particular. Open up that nappy, lift it up, and just hold it back down for a couple of seconds, just so that anything can happen that needs to happen.
Good advice.
And the final thing to say is these do come in different sizes. So particularly if you're going to put it on a changing unit, or if you have something that goes over the cot, any of those things, just check the measurements, because although they're slightly squishy, you want it to be flat and comfortable for your baby. So just make sure it's going to fit in the spot that you want to put it.
So what I'd like to talk about next is baby monitors. We've seen so many technological advances with these, and now you have a choice of 3 different types. So the most common are the video monitors, where you can actually see your baby sleeping in a parent unit or on your phone. But the whole idea is there's a camera there. You've also got a much cheaper version, which is the audio, where it's simply hearing your baby and the sounds that they're making, and it may have a little display. And then at the other end, you've got some incredible technological ones, which are often wearables, and they're measuring all sorts of things. So they might measure oxygen, they might measure breathing rate and heart rate, and it's really about collecting data and less about kind of watching your baby in that sense. So when it comes to choosing which one's for you, well, as you can imagine, the audio ones are on the cheaper end. The video ones, there's quite a big range of prices for those, and the wearables tend to be the most expensive, and you may need to buy extra little additions and things. So they're just different. Again, it's really what you want. And I think when you're thinking about a wearable, and in fact we've got an example here. This is an owlet one, and this is a little sock that goes on your baby's foot, and it's collecting all this data. And for those, if you want that reassurance, if you want to know all this information about your baby and almost track your baby and your baby's sleep patterns, and you're someone who probably loves spreadsheets and data in that sense.
A bit of a data monkey, I think.
Then that can be great. I think with all of us, with some wearables, sometimes we can rely a little bit too much and looking there and worrying, but they can be, if that's your kind of thing, then that is a really interesting area that monitors have gone into.
Absolutely. And I mean, I will say this is actually the area I wished I'd done so much more research and really looked into this properly before buying one. The one we had was fine, but I did end up upgrading in the end to something a bit better. But I went down the road of the classic video monitor. So this is just an example here, the Baby Move U. Got your camera there. That is mounted wherever you want around the cot. And then you have the parent unit here, which you take with you wherever you are. It's even got a clip on the back, that one. A lot of them have things like that, or a little stand or something. And you're able to see what's going on.
And they can work also, some of them can work through an app as well, can't they, through Wi-Fi?
Absolutely. So I have a similar model to this at home, and then I also have the app. So I've actually got my baby's cot on here. He's not asleep in it at the moment, he's at nursery, but I can actually check in and take a look at that from my phone. And that comes in handy if you've got that, whether it's something that is purely app-based or the option to have both. It's actually quite useful if, for example, you need to run down to the bottom of the garden or something like that, because you can take this with you and it'll switch over to your 4G. And I wouldn't recommend always using your 4G or 5G if you have it, but it does give you that extra option of being able to use your data as well as the Wi-Fi. And also brilliant if your Wi-Fi goes down, which happens, and it is really something to consider with a baby monitor, is that if you have something that relies entirely on Wi-Fi, if your internet goes down, your baby monitor goes down. And actually a lot of these have their own inbuilt signals too.
Yes.
So you can have
absolutely.
a signal or a Wi-Fi or a parent unit or an app.
And we have heard worries really about people hacking into baby monitors, and particularly with Wi-Fi, what you need to do just with all your devices at home is make sure you've got a secure password. And then that's going to kind of get rid of that issue. But it is something to think about. The more that you're using Wi-Fi, then that is something that you do need to think a little bit about that security.
As any smart products you have in your home, you just need to make sure that you're following all the rules. And MadeForMums has got lots of help on how you can do this as well if you need it.
And one of the key things that often comes up is about range. How far can you actually still see your baby or hear your baby? You're taking that parent unit away. How far from your baby? And you'll find that a lot of manufacturers will specify the range, and they may sound enormous distances, but remember that's been measured generally in an area where there aren't walls.
Through a straight line, yeah.
And also not kind of floors of upstairs, and so every time there's a barrier there, that is going to reduce the range. So I think look at the range, but also be aware that doesn't mean that's the maximum. That's not in reality.
Don't measure from your baby's room to your kitchen table and go on that. You have to have a little bit of wiggle room in there. And as I say, if you've got something that's app-based, if you have a big house and you might need to be further away, that might be something that helps you there. I think the other one to talk about as well as range for me is the length of the power cable. A lot of these come with quite short power cables, and if you've got a USB one, that's fine. You can buy a longer USB cable. If you happen to buy a brand that comes with its own proprietary plug, you might be in trouble and end up having to run extension leads along walls and up ceilings, and you do have to do that because one, you've got to secure anything around the floor of your baby's room to ensure that they can't get hold of it, but also you want that cable, which is going to have to go up in the air at some point, to be out of reach of your child. So
and as they grow, it's always, you don't want any exposed cables, toddlers.
No. One day they're going to climb out that cot and they're going to grab it. So
yes, so no, that's a very good point. And I think then also the how long it's going to last once it's charged up as well.
Yeah, because you can get wireless, without having to have anything on, but obviously that's going to need to be charged, and most of the wireless ones will last kind of 8 to 12 hours. So if you've got a baby that sleeps 12 hours, that's brilliant, but also you're probably not going to want to use a wireless monitor because it's going to run out of charge.
and of course, once your baby's 6 months and they're in their own room, and then you will want that, and you're hoping that they're sleeping quite long periods by that stage. So again, something to really think about. The features on some of the baby monitors now are incredible, aren't they?
They are. I mean, it's like you say about data collection. It's not just in terms of a wearable or something, but also a lot of these will record every time your baby rolls over or makes a noise. So even if you don't wake up in the night, the monitor can show you when your baby has been stirring.
And then if your baby does stir, then a lot of them have different sounds and lullabies and white noise.
Two-way talk as well. You can press a button and speak to your baby if you want to do that.
Indeed. And you know, because when babies can get quite restless, and it doesn't mean they're fully awake. And it may be that just to hear your reassuring voice will be enough to get that baby to go, oh, okay, and then drop off to sleep.
And when they're a little bit older, maybe they just want to hear a parent's voice.
Absolutely. So I think it's really a question of, I mean, there was also light shows as well. Some of them will do projection,
play lullabies.
But the more features you're getting, the more expensive the item. So have a think about, you know, what do you need and what's your budget, and then you can really choose the right one.
Okay, so our next one is this very cute little man over here. These are very popular at the moment with very good reason. This is a baby sleep aid. Anything that helps a baby sleep is good in my opinion. And these come in lots of little designs. A lot of them are teddies and stuffed animals and cute things like this, with multiple functionalities. So a lot of these will play different sounds. They might have a night light in them. Many of them are white noise machines as well, because white noise can really help. It mimics the sound of the sounds in the womb, so it can help a newborn to sleep. And yeah, there's lots of little things to look out for in these. I think number one is the variety of sounds that you might get. Some babies are going to love a lullaby, some will want white noise or pink noise. Others might like the sound of crashing waves or rainwater. And a lot of these offer like different ones. There's a heartbeat in this one as well, I think.
And that's a Tommy to Peak Grow friend, isn't it?
That is, yes.
And I think what's interesting is that you've really seen a lot of these functions were introduced initially on monitors, but now they've been turned into more toy-like creatures and products. And that's interesting, isn't it? Because it's making it more of a lovely thing for a child to have.
Yeah, and it is worth pointing out that before 12 months, you shouldn't be putting this in the cot with a baby who is asleep. You know, it's tempting because they've got these little hooks and things, and that's fine once they're over 12 months, and they may well get attached to it and it may become a comforter. But you can take these for travel. You know, you might want to hook it over the handlebars of your pushchair or something like that. And it's fine to kind of have it as the baby's falling asleep and you're stood next to them, but take it out, make sure that sleep space is safe.
Yes, and nothing in there at all in terms of toys or loose blankets or anything.
Yeah, and just to point out, most of these are loud enough that you can put them on a shelf or a bedside table or something nearby, and that soothing is still going to work.
It's just something lovely to have. As the child gets older as well, then they really do become a toy. So again, think about, you know, from a cost perspective, it's not necessarily just that initial outlay. It really could last for a long time and be like a little friend.
Yeah, and also pointing out, a lot of these have a sensor, so if your baby stirs, they turn back on, especially like with the white noise, that can really help to get them through sleep cycles, so you get a bit more sleep as well.
Very clever.
But do watch out for obvious things like how it charges, whether it has a battery, whether it needs to be plugged into work, all those kind of things, especially if it's something that's going to turn on and off overnight, probably needs to be charged or have the batteries changed in it quite frequently.
And then thinking about sleep aids, I mean, one of the most simplest.
Yeah, I mean, this is the biggest sleep aid for my son. It's a dummy. This is the only safe thing to go in a cot with a baby under the age of 12 months old, is a dummy, a soother. You know, we've got a few examples of them here of different kind of shapes and sizes.
And you know, Lullaby Trust have stated that there is research that suggests that it can, if a child is using a soother, it may reduce the risk of SIDS as well. So a very interesting little product, but they are not for everyone.
No.
As a mum of 3, I had one who basically used a thumb, one who loved his soother, and another who just never wanted one. And of course, like anything with sleep, even with sort of white noise and stuff, obviously what you want to do is gradually wean your child off so that they're not totally dependent on these things, and whether it's a soother or a certain action that you do, just but for those moments and when you're first adjusting to life as a parent and helping, you know, the last thing you need is a baby or a child who just isn't able to sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. There's such a personal preference and choice, and there's no right or wrong. I think what we all agree on though is, you know, when the time comes to wean them off do it as soon as you can, but you know, it's okay. So another really important one in terms of like these items that you might need with a baby is somewhere to put them when they're not asleep. I know you hate this term, Susie, but it does go around in terms of this industry is the word container. So it's a kind of safe space for an awake baby, somewhere where they might be happy to kind of chill out for a little while.
And there's a surprising number of options, aren't there?
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, but one of the things that that a lot of parents will buy is a bouncer chair or a rocker chair, and they're very similar, but the bouncer, when you sort of put pressure, or your baby might be kicking their legs, it will actually bounce slightly. It's a very gentle movement. With a rocker, it's designed so it will very gently rock. Again, probably with you just giving it a little gentle nudge, or with the baby moving around. And they are safe places. If they don't recline completely flat, then they're not places for your baby to sleep, but they're fantastic if you're going, you're in the kitchen and your baby's down there on the floor in their rocker or bouncer. Never put a rocker or bouncer on a raised surface ever. But they need to be on the floor. But then you can move into another room and you pick them up and you've got them, and then they're safe again and they're contained. They Absolutely. Are contained. And the thing that, for me as a mum of twins, I have to say was a real game changer for us with the swings, the baby swing. We have one. I had friends with twins who had two. We had one, and it just meant that one baby could swing in it and just soothe, not fall asleep, obviously, because it ours was upright, but just soothe while perhaps I was winding the other one or feeding one of them.
So the difference with these is they tend to be motorised, the swings,
yes,
to move them. So it is a hands-off item for the parent. As you say, if you've got twins, it allows you to comfort one while the other is feeling comforted.
And often they're a bit bigger than your bouncer or your
big
rocker.
stands,
they do, so again, have a think. But if you really need that sort of hands-free, or you have a baby who's just very grouchy, and I'm afraid some babies are super calm and some are a little bit more fretful, for a short period of time it can really soothe. So yeah, for us it was just fantastic. But then on a sort of more simple basis, we have play gyms, which I'm going to bring in here, or an activity mat, and these come in various shapes and sizes, but you've got a soft area for the baby to actually lie on, and then there's often things that are above it, a sort of arches with toys hanging down, and it's just something to really entertain your child, your baby, particularly in those early days. And they can kick out, because they love kicking out, don't they?
Oh, there was nothing my son loved more than lying under his and just going like this. We had one that had lights and music as well. There's all different kinds. And yeah, when they first start to touch things and they'll reach up and try, that lovely moment when you first see them bat at one of the rattles on a play gym. And you can get them, often they'll fold up in a way that they fold quite flat. And they're just something that you can have in the room, and you can just pop your baby down, and then gradually, as your baby gets more neck control and you really want to start to encourage tummy time, sometimes they might have a little area where it can really help with tummy time. Yeah, maybe a raised section, or I think the one that you just showed has a little sensory book that you can tie onto it to give them something to look at a bit higher up. And remember, with tummy time, always supervise your baby, because they do get very tired. Their neck muscles really aren't developed yet, but it's so important. Can't stress enough, because now we're putting our babies on their back to sleep. Actually, they're getting very, very used to being on their back. And I know with my 3, none of mine like tummy time. And it was a bit of a trial, but really important, because it actually is one of the ways that can really encourage your baby to start rolling and crawling as well. Okay, so talking of tummy time, we've got another product here, which is a really interesting one, and a one that often gets talked about. We have a lot of questions about. This is a Dock-a-Tot, which is a baby dock. Bit of a weird word, again, like container, but essentially it's another safe place to put your baby for while they're awake, for lounging. And because it's got these raised sides, you can lie them on there and get them up on their shoulders for tummy time. It's particularly good as they get towards kind of 3-4 months, and you want them up a bit higher as they're starting to build their strength. And if you've got a child like we did who doesn't like tummy time, sometimes that elevation and them feeling a little bit special can help them to giggle through it rather than screaming through it.
Yes, with you by their side.
And I think it's also worth pointing out, you may have seen this product in the past with a different name. It did used to be called the Sleepyhead, and was marketed as a sleep product, but this has now changed. DockATot now is a lounging
sort of day and
rest.
Chilling and great for tummy time as well. Just somewhere, exactly what we were saying, somewhere that you can put your baby when they're not asleep, that's really safe and they can enjoy.
Yeah, and we should point out, put it on the floor.
Yes, absolutely. Never ever have it on a
table or
area.
A sofa or the bed or anything like that. Put it on the floor. That's the safest place for it to be. That's the safest place for your baby to be.
So I think it just shows there really are so many different products that are really special, and some do so many things and others are very, very specific. And I guess it's important that you mustn't feel you have to buy everything here. This is a guide to some of the products you may be interested in.
Yeah, and I think I would say don't feel pressured to buy all of these before you've met your baby. You know, you talked about the different temperaments that babies have. You may find that you need every sleep aid in the book to help your child, or you might get really lucky and have that unicorn baby who you can just put down on their back in the cot and they drift off to sleep. So don't be in a rush to buy absolutely everything before your baby comes. But equally, and I say this all the time, those first 6 months are going to be the hardest 6 months. So if there is something that you've seen here that you think that's going to make my life so much easier, then if you can find the budget to do it, buy it. Don't think twice.